So I would like to ask you this. How do you see your role in countering Western hegemony and influence? And in particular, although you condemned the genocide, what we in many areas of the world felt that China did not assert itself in stopping the genocide. So can you please clarify what the thinking was behind your somewhat muted role?
Our next speaker is Dr. Victor Gao. He is a chair professor at Soochow University, vice president of the Center for China and Globalization, and chairman of the China Energy Security Institute. He also serves on the advisory and editorial boards, including those of the Energy Intelligence Group, OPEC Energy Review, and Saudi Aramco, and is an arbitrator at the Asia Pacific International Arbitration Chamber in Singapore. He's also a former English interpreter for Deng Xiaoping. He has extensive experience in diplomacy, law, investment banking, and corporate management, having held senior roles at Morgan Stanley, CICC, Daiwa Securities, and CNOOC Limited. Dr. Gao has overseen transactions exceeding $100 billion across multiple industries. He holds degrees from Yale University and Beijing University of Foreign Studies and is a licensed attorney in New York. And last but not least, he's also quite a celebrity in Pakistan. So.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hossain, for giving me the floor. And I also want to thank Senator Said for his kind words for me. And I'm so honored to share this stage together with Daniel, Anastasia, and Desmond. For me, it is a true honor each time when I come back to Pakistan. It's like homecoming for me because I'm coming back to be with my brothers and sisters. And we talked about China-Pakistani friendship as high as the Himalayas. But now let me share with you, China-Pakistani friendship is as high as in the space, because right now China and Pakistan are working together to train the Pakistani taikonauts or the cosmonauts or the astronauts. And one day you will see Pakistani taikonaut, which is the Chinese version for that, will be in the space station. And I want to take this opportunity to share what I believe in. In this round, China will be the first country to land taikonaut on the face of the moon and bring them back safely. And I hope it will be a pride for China as well as for Pakistan, for our cooperation. Now, I also want to take this opportunity to congratulate the Pakistani military, the armed forces, and the Air Force, and especially Field Marshal Munir, for the excellent battle victory on May the 7th. I was asked who won, who lost on the major Indian television, and I told the Indian audience, in order not to give you too much grief, let me tell you, there was only one winner and there was only one loser. And the loser was not Pakistan, and the winner was not India. I want to use this opportunity to tell everyone in this hall and in this great nation, the loser was India and the winner was Pakistan. And I really am so delighted this, because I think the Pakistani victory in the aero battle against India is a victory for peace, because it will make sure that no one will dare to launch another war against Pakistan, not only because of the bravery and the resourcefulness and the wisdom of the Pakistani people, but also because of the brotherhood and the sisterhood between China and Pakistan. It is truly time-tested. I listened very carefully to what Mr. Daniel Randa said, raise the hay when the sunshine is still lasting. But let me tell you, true friends need to be with each other in sunshine or in storm. And true friends cannot come and go once in 15 years. True friends should be together day and night without being separated by one single minute. And I also listened very carefully to my respected Mr. Rundy when he said the Americans' interest in minerals. Let me tell you, because I'm very philosophical, I always try to remind myself to be very philosophical. The American interest in mineral is not in minerals. The American interest in minerals is for the minerals for defense industry. Now they no longer have a defense ministry. It's very dangerous. Their interest in the minerals are in war because they now have a war department. And Secretary Hegseth, a wonderful American whom I highly admire, is a war secretary. So just imagine Mr. Hegseth walks into this room and tell all the Pakistani friends, hello, Pakistanis, I'm war secretary. I hope President Trump will really rechange it back to defense secretary. And you remember at the Magala conference last year, I proposed that maybe Pakistan should nominate Mr. Trump, at that time President-elect of the United States, for the Nobel Peace Prize. I really did that. And afterwards, one VIP on the Pakistani side pulled me aside and said, this is a good recommendation. We will follow up. Now, subsequent to that, in due course, Pakistan did nominate President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. And I'm sure President Trump took notice of that. And among many other things, it helped improve relations between Pakistan and the United States. I'm so happy I made that proposal last year at the Magala. I want to use this opportunity to make another recommendation. Pakistan, keep nominating President Trump for Nobel Peace Prize until he really gets the Peace Prize, either when he is in the White House or after he leaves the White House. Remember, President Carter didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize when he was in the White House. He got it many years after he left the White House. So let's all pray that President Trump will get the Peace Prize. If such nomination and is winning the Nobel Peace Prize will help make the world more peaceful. And in this connection, renaming the War Department back into the Defense Department may be a right step in the right direction. Maybe Mr. Hegseth from the War Secretary into the Defense Secretary may be in the right direction. At least that's what I thought. Now, talking about the world order, listen very carefully to what Daniel had to say and what Anastasia had to say. Allow me to mention one point. We are still living in the international order established back in 1945. And that international order established in 1945 was not meant to be unipolar. It was meant to be, and it was put into place as a multipolar world. Look at the composition of the United Nations Security Council with 5 permanent members, each with a veto power. That means the international order was meant to be involving checks and balances, and its main task is to make sure there will be no more another world war breaking out, which will be a scourge on mankind. That is very important. Allow me to share with you one thing. In front of our distinguished Mr. Rundy, the United States has been in default of payments to the United Nations, running up an arrear of more than $3 billion. China has never defaulted, and for more than 10 years, China has been the largest UN fee-paying country in the world, ahead of the United States. But have you heard China bragging about that? No. Probably I will get some slap in my wrist when I go back to Beijing if I was quoted as telling the world that China paid more UN membership fees than the United States. But this is true. This is true. China always keeps its international commitment. China keeps its commitment to brothers and sisters. And among all the brothers and sisters in the world, Pakistan is really the ironclad brothers and sisters. I was questioned during the most dangerous time of the Arrow battle, or before that, whether China will have doubts about having Pakistan as a brother. And I told the whole world, really, because it's a global platform, never second-guess China's commitment to Pakistan. And China will never hesitate to share with the Pakistani brothers and sisters the best equipment, the best technology, and the best military hardware and the software, if it will help Pakistani brothers and sisters to defend your sovereignty and territorial integrity. That is not something Victor Gao says. That is what I understand to be the true bottom line in China's relations with Pakistan. Now, I'm also very much asked the question, well, now Pakistan and America are improving their relations. Is China concerned? Let me put it on the record. China has no concern about improvement in Pakistani-US relations if it does not become detrimental to China-Pakistani brotherhood and sisterhood. And we have no doubt about how China and Pakistan will handle our bilateral relations because, as I mentioned, true friendship, true brotherhood and sisterhood is not for one day. It is forever. It is for perpetuity. And in that sense, I think we, the two brothers and sisters, will never, have second doubts about each other, and we will be truly together. Now, I mentioned the international order being multilateral to start with. Something wrong happened in between until one country believes it is the unipolarity in the world, which is not true, which is actually a betrayal of the multipolarity established back in 1945. What China wants to do is to make sure that no country in this world, on this earth, will pretend to be the unipolarity in the world. No. Unipolarity is destructive of sovereignties of about 200 countries in the world. No country should be allowed to point a gun at your head and demand your ultimatum and demand your surrender. That's not good. And no country wants to live in the rule of jungle. We should all live in the civilized world with real, mutually agreed rules. Whenever someone talks about rules, the first question is, who made the rule? Did I get involved in making the rule? Did Pakistan get involved in making the rule? If it is not our rules, why should we abide by that? And also allow me to mention, the real choice for Pakistan and for almost the 200 countries in the world is not a forced choice between China versus the United States. That's the wrong choice. The real choice is for you to make up your mind whether the United States is doing the right thing or the wrong thing, and whether China is doing the right thing or the wrong thing. If the United States is doing the right thing, why don't you want to work with the United States? If the United States is doing the wrong thing, like becoming in default of UN membership payment, why do you want to follow their leadership? Likewise, if China is doing the right thing, even many countries urge you not to work with China, why do you want to listen to that kind of nonsense? And if China is doing the wrong thing, God forbid, and I don't think China will do the wrong thing, why do you want to work with China? So that's a very important thing. Use your brain to make up your mind whether US or China is doing the right thing or the wrong thing. And while many people in Washington may pretend they do not know, I think the rest of the world will know for sure what is the right thing and what is the wrong thing. Now, let me be very brief. China is really building up its military power. It is not against any of the 14 land neighboring countries. It's not against the 6 maritime neighboring countries. It's not against China's Taiwan province. The real target is only one. It is with the United States. And the real purpose is not for war. The real purpose is to make sure that the Americans will know how to treasure peace. Because when you go to Washington, some people keep talking about war with China. They call it destined for war scenario. They came up with a term called the Thucydides trap. I completely rebuke it. I came up with my version of the truth. It's called the inevitability of peace between China and the United States. And I do want to have a chance to talk more with Mr. Rundy about the inevitability of peace, because war is not an option between China and the United States, and war should never be considered as an option between China and the United States. If you looked at one weapon China demonstrated on September the 3rd in Tiananmen Square, in front of the whole world, it's called a Dongfeng 61. It can reach any target, anywhere in the world, in 20 minutes. And its final speed will be 40 Mach. Nothing can stop it. Nothing can intercept it. The Iron Dome or the Gold Dome or the Diamond Dome, no, it cannot be intercepted. If you really want to impose war on China, you will get war. That's the simple point. By taking this point, China makes sure the United States will treasure peace, and China and the United States will work for peace, and let's abandon anything like destined for war or Thucydides trap, because China and the United States, and together with Russia, of course, are the three most powerful nuclear power countries. China will never tell you how many warheads it has. That's the top secret in the world. That's the most important strategic ambiguity in the world. But China always tells you, if you want to impose nuclear war on China, China will wipe you out with a nuclear retaliation. That is the determination of the Chinese people. And we want to embrace peace as much as we can. China and Russia, we are peaceful neighbors. We share a common undefended border, 4,300 kilometers long. We don't consider the United States as our rival or our competitor or our enemy. We consider the United States as a great country to be engaged with fully for mutual benefit. In that sense, I think a stronger China and a stronger China-Pakistani friendship will make peace in this world stronger. Now, again, allow me to mention one thing for the benefit. China and the United States should be eternally grateful to Pakistan for the very important role Pakistan played in bringing China and the United States together in 1971. Dr. Henry Kissinger took off from Islamabad on that most secretive visit in human history. He flew to Beijing and eventually opened the door between China and the United States. That changed the whole world. Now, I coined a term called the China-Pakistani Plus. It does not only mean China-Pakistani Plus, involving Pakistan playing greater roles in terms with Arab relations or the Muslim relations. I want to see Pakistan continue to play important roles in bringing China and the United States together. If Pakistan can play that role back in 1971, why couldn't Pakistan continue to play that indispensable role in 2025? Now, allow me to wrap up. We are living in this AI world. Now, the arrival of the DeepSeek moment has several messages, as I talked about in the op-ed. First of all, DeepSeek proved that AI is not American intelligence. Very simple, but very elegant. AI is not American intelligence. AI is artificial intelligence for the benefit of all, to be participated in all. Second, AI should be open sourced. It cannot be closed sourced. The OpenAI in the United States is closed sourced. It pretends to be open AI. So there will be a showdown sooner or later that the closed sourced way of developing AI will be a dead end eventually. And only open sourced AI development will be the winner. This is my firm belief. I want to bet my house with you here. I said this on Magala 2025, and we can gather again in a matter of 3 or 5 years to see whether the closed-sourced way of development of AI will indeed become a dead end. Why do you know? Let me share with you. Because the closed-sourced way of developing AI is designed to achieve one purpose and one purpose only, to establish AI dominance. But we cannot allow any country to achieve AI dominance. Why? Because if any country achieves AI dominance, it will completely disregard sovereignty and civilizational heritage of all the nations in the world. AI dominance in the hands of one single country will be a disaster for the 8 billion people in the world. Therefore, philosophically or as a matter of practice, you need to promote AI in an open-sourced way so that all the countries, all the companies, all the militaries, all the individuals can participate freely and with very low cost, rather than charging you an exorbitant amount of fees to use AI. That's one point I want to make. Now, the other side, allow me to make a final point. I completely support what was said about Gaza. I'm personally very traumatized to see the atrocities, genocide committed against the Palestinian people. I want to use this opportunity to make one point. China firmly opposes the genocide committed by Israel against the Palestinians. And in this spirit, China is completely with Pakistan. And we are standing shoulder to shoulder with all the Muslim countries in the world, with all the Arab countries in the world. We will never allow one single country try to dominate above the Palestinian people. And we firmly believe in the two-state solution. And I hope China and Pakistan will work tirelessly to make sure that the Palestinians will always be treated as equals to the Israelis, and the two-state solution eventually will be achieved. In that spirit, may I wrap up, and I hope you will welcome me as your brother, and I welcome everyone in this audience and in this great nation as my brothers and sisters. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gao. A quick follow-up question. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of interest in terms of what you said about the US and China, but since you've made repeated mentions of the conflict in May, and you're very clear that Pakistan won and India lost, based on that, how has that changed regional dynamics in South Asia, in your opinion?
The South Asia is one of the most important regions in the world of today. And I think the Pakistani victory in the Arrow battle will really wake up the Indian side to the huge disadvantage by the Indian military. Why? Because I think I'm very proud, and I'm openly acknowledging this. The Pakistanis used a lot of China-Pakistani jointly produced weapons, the planes, as well as Chinese planes supplied to the Pakistani side, as well as hardware and software, and more importantly, and I'm not divulging any secret, the way how you organize battle for the future. And I think, I will not talk about the Pakistani side, but the way the Chinese look at it is very interesting. Going forward, as demonstrated by the Pakistani victory on May the 7th, it would involve a seamless integration of space, air, ground, surface, water, and submarine into one seamless fighting web, aided by data, information, and AI. Therefore, going forward, no single soldier will be fighting in his own capacity. No single plane will be fighting in its single capacity. It will always be an integral part of a seamlessly, fully integrated fighting web. Now, in this regard, I would say if we only compare Pakistani side with the Indian side, Pakistani side win because of this completely new paradigm of war. And Indian side find it impossible to integrate everything together into a seamlessly integrated fighting web. Why? Because Indian imported weapon like an import exposition. They import from Russia, they imported from the United States, they imported from France, you name it, and each one has its own agenda to refuse to sharing its most important code with the other side. So in times of battle, if you gain an advantage of a split of a second, you overwhelm the other side. And as demonstrated in the Indian-Pakistani aerial battle, the Pakistani side can see further than the Indian side, and they can strike further and at a greater distance than the Indian side. Not because of the bravery of each pilot, but because of this seamless fighting web that the Pakistanis now have been fully operating. And I'm so proud that China and Pakistan are working together. Now, China is working at this moment on more sophisticated integration, aided by AI. And I want to tell everyone here, the brothers and sisters in Pakistan, be assured that China, in my best judgment, will have no reservation in sharing the best technology, best software, best paradigm, and the best way how to integrate and putting everything together into one seamless fighting web. That is the winning strategy. And I hope the Indians will lick their wounds for at least 10 years after their Arrow battle loss, and will become a better advocate of peace with its neighbors, including, in particular, Pakistan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. My first question is to Victor Gao. So basically, there is an extreme amount of polarization in the United States of America, where we see a lot of different, there's a debate, constant debate going on between the left and the right. As a young student from National University of Science and Technology, I see these things, I see the young generation. I want to know how China has done this amazing thing where the entire nation is going in a very singular direction of development, whereas US is going on a downhill road of polarization and not caring about development in that sense. So how has China achieved that? And how is it better than the approach of the West in current regime?
Who are you addressing the question to?
Victor Gao.
Thank you very much for your question. Before I answer your question, please allow me to express my condolence and mourning to the loss of life in that terrorist attack in India. But I want to urge everyone, don't jump the gun and accuse any other government for behind the terrorist attack. I condemn terrorist attacks of all colors, shapes, and forms. And whenever there is a terrorist attack, I hope investigation will be exhausted before you produce real evidence as to who was behind it. But let's really mourn the loss of life. That's number one. Number two is that, I was educated at Yale Law School. I went to the same law school as Vice President J.D. Vance did. I was 20 classes ahead of Vice President J.D. Vance. Let me tell you, when I look at the United States, comparing China and the United States, if we think China is a vehicle, the United States is a vehicle, China's vehicle has 4 wheels. It's always synchronized, moving together forward or backwards, or turning right or turning left. When you think about the United States as a vehicle, whether it has 4 wheels or not, I do not know. Maybe sometimes only 3. And the wheels are lined completely in opposing direction. One moves forward, the other moves backward, the other moves leftwise or rightwise. Now, I learned it was the original design. The American forefathers founding fathers did not want to have a very strong government. They want to have enough checks and balances. So understanding the checks and balances in the US system is crucial. Now, allow me to mention one thing. I'm actually very much concerned about the economic situation in the United States. The federal government remains shut down today. Can you believe it? The largest economy in the world, a very strong military power, remains shut down, not because of China, not because of Europe, not because India versus Pakistan, but because of the internal problems inside the United States. I also have a concern that maybe 2025 or 2026, there will be a major crisis breaking out in the United States. And if that does, and knock on the wood, I hope it will never happen, but if it does, let me tell you, there is only one country in this world which can save the United States, and that is China. China did that in 2008 during the international financial crisis. If you do not believe me, listen to what Hank Paulson said. He kept calling China in 2008, asking for China to bail out the United States. And if there is any really wobbling in Wall Street in the United States, no other country can bail out the United States other than China. That means, I hope Mr. Randi and all the American friends, whom I highly respect, will know how to deal with China. Don't alienate China too much, that eventually when that disaster does happen, God forbid, China will stand still and watch across the ocean. That will be a bad thing for the United States as well as for China. Now, the other thing is that I want to show you this one, and I'll wrap up. Now, this is a phone. It's a Huawei phone. It's all chips, all made in China, but it has one function that the Americans never will have. It has a satellite communication function, which will enable me to communicate to a high-altitude satellite, 35,000 kilometers above our head. 35,000 kilometers. It's not like the SpaceX, which communicates with low-orbit satellite, 350 kilometers. What does that mean? And this is a civilian-use phone. You do not see any extruded antenna in it. It's just a normal phone. This is for civilian use. The Americans will never have this technology because China has the proprietary technology of communicating 35,000 kilometers above your warhead. What does it mean? China wants to embrace peace, but in case of war, the lower orbit satellites will be destroyed. And the high altitude satellites may have greater opportunity or likelihood of remaining intact. That means in times of real war or a world war, you can communicate with this phone with anyone else in the world after everything is destroyed, after low orbit satellites will be destroyed. That's why I always say inevitability of peace between China and the United States. China has developed enough proprietary technologies to be way ahead of the United States. And the fact that the newly launched aircraft carrier, Fujian, which has the electromagnetic catapult system, is amazing. President Trump said the American version of the electromagnetic system does not work. He wants to go back to the steam catapult system. Now, let me tell you, the electromagnetic catapult system for the aircraft launcher is the only real viable solution. Steam catapult system does not work, especially when you are facing off each other and you need to launch your aircrafts, for example, quicker, faster, in greater abundance than the other side. A simple split of a second will matter. I say this to say China is very focused. China is not only a manufacturing power alone. China is the top brain power in the world. And in this regard, we've learned a lot from Britain, for example, for many years. We've learned a lot from the United States, and we treat both Britain and the United States and many others, and also Russia, for example, as equal partners. We do not want to seek global dominance, but we will never allow any country or any group of countries to dominate above China. These are very simple examples, but each time when you see me use this phone, you will know this has the real cutting-edge technology in the world. Not heard of in Britain, not heard of in the United States, not heard of in Russia. But in China, this just looks like a cheese or bread and butter on the table. Everyone can buy and use this very sophisticated functions not available anywhere else in the world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You should tell us how much it costs.
This costs cheaper than the Apple phone. Can you believe it? Everything made in China is lower cost. Can you believe it? Let me show you this one. No, I do not advertise this phone, but this is real something of a masterpiece.
Okay. Yes, please.
Well, I want to thank Mr. Gao for recognizing. I think it's very important that we should condemn terrorism and all of its.
Yeah, very quickly. Thank you very much for mentioning Africa. Africa should not be the forgotten continent in the Magala conference. The reality was that for quite a few decades, Africa was the forgotten continent as far as, unfortunately, the Europeans are concerned, because they have a lot of skeletons in their closet as far as Africa is concerned. I do not want to go into details. And also by the United States because of its slavery history, etc. We do not want to go into details of that. China has no skeleton in its closet as far as Africa is concerned. China actually sacrificed a lot in supporting the African national liberation drive, mainly because at that time the Chinese leader was Mao Zedong, the predecessor of Deng Xiaoping, for whom I interpreted with. And Mao had this fancy of supporting people everywhere in the world in achieving their independence from colonialism and imperialism, for example. So that's the beginning of China's engagement with Africa. And for many years, China's cooperation with Africa was one-directional. China supported Africa, providing arms, providing financial support, providing ideological support. Later, around 2000, it changed. It became two-way traffic. China imported a lot, increasing amount from Africa, and exported a lot to Africa, to such an extent that there was an wakening up in Europe and in the United States for Africa. And again, let me put this on the record. China has no problem with American engagement with Africa, or European engagement, or with Japanese engagement with Africa. The more the better, because Africa needs help and assistance from all countries in the world which they can. And talking about connectivity, which Africa direly needs, The more roads you build, the better. The Chinese build road, the Japanese or the Americans, etc. But for the moment, only China is really spending a lot in building up connectivity of all kinds, building up power generations in the African continent and helping them to train talents of all kinds. So I hope there will be real awakening of interest in Africa in terms of the size of the population. Chinese population, African population are more or less on the par with each other now. In terms of the landmass, African continent is about 3 times as big as China. Now, each African country on average is less than a province in China. So China does have the expertise and the knowledge base in helping the African countries how to manage their situation and how to upgrade themselves, lifting their population out of poverty, building up connectivity, and really focus on manufacturing and industrial output. So let's all work together for the benefit of the African people. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just say that there's a 400 million middle class in Africa. In the next 15 years, there'll be more citizens of Africa than the citizens of India and China combined. There's going to be more people in Africa in some very short period of time than there are in India and China combined. So it's an enormous continent. I've been to 10 African countries. I helped shape, in the first Trump administration, its policy towards Africa called Prosper Africa. And I'm on the board of a business advisory group called Busara Global Advisors. They're specifically focused on U.S. and American business ties between Africa and the United States. I think the United States has been a very good partner to Africa in many different ways, whether it's in trade or security or development. So I think the West needs to do a better job of seeing Africa as an opportunity as opposed to a charity case.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mehreen Khan, and I'm a public policy analyst. My question is directed to the representative of what I believe to be not just the upcoming, but the ultimate global superpower. The only power that doesn't, and the only speaker that did not issue any disclaimers, who spoke for his country, on behalf of his country, and expressed himself openly, and that is Dr. Gao. The speaker that acknowledged the massive genocide in Gaza. And we condemn terrorist acts across the board. We also condemn genocides. We call them out and we condemn them. Thank you for acknowledging that Pakistan is a sovereign state. And thank you for allowing us the liberty of making friendships with our neighbors and choosing our friends. Well, we had a neighbor called Iran. We still have one, and we wanted to build a pipeline with them. And no prizes to the students at the back for guessing which country blocked that. So my question to Dr. Gao is, in 1998, I was a student at Harvard University. In fact, when Dean Nye was in charge, he was the ideator behind soft power. And I was studying a course called Foreign Policy. And in that course, there was a huge chunk devoted to the rising bear of China. And being a British Pakistani, I had no idea. China was never on my radar in the late 90s because there was no fear-mongering in the British press about China. And going to America for the first time and studying there and living there for 2 years, I was just amazed at why the Americans were so afraid of China. That was 27 years ago. And clearly they were seeing the amazing changes that were happening in China economically, strategically, technologically, and they knew China was the threat to American bullying and American supremacy, which has come true. Dr. Gao, I would like to ask you, the reason I think China is so successful is because you don't impose your culture, your language, and your values on any country you do business with, unlike our colonial friends, who tell us, do you want more of us? Like a cheap date. Otherwise, we have options. So, Dr. Gao, how do you think China is going to deal with this great role that it is embracing of being a global superpower, of outstripping its rivals they see you as a rival. That's why I'm using that term. Because I think China is a civilization. It's not just a power. It's been a great civilization throughout history, one of the greatest. And it's regaining its greatness after colonial intervention and deliberate suppression of China. So I would like to ask you this. How do you see your role in countering Western hegemony and influence? And in particular, although you condemned the genocide, what we in many areas of the world felt that China did not assert itself in stopping the genocide. So can you please clarify what the thinking was behind your somewhat muted role in the Gaza genocide? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mademoiselle. First of all, you mentioned Professor Joseph Nye. He's well known in China. I have high respect for you for being educated at Harvard. And China does not want to be a superpower, because superpower as a term is a negative term, derogatory term in the Chinese language. We want to be a superpopulation. And I coined that term, superpopulation, for a country with more than 1 billion people. In the world of today, only 2 countries qualify, China and India. But we want to be superpopulations, but not superpowers. A superpower, for example, is very abrasive, very sharp elbows, for example, pushes you around and sometimes hold a gun at your head. This is something China will never do. Now, the other thing is that if you compare China versus the United States, I've been said in the darkest hour of the tariff war that China, we don't care, we don't care, we don't care. I said that 3 times on public television. Why? Because China has been here for 5,000 years, if not even longer. And for most of the time, there is no United States, really. I don't think Mr. Ruddy would disagree with me. Next year, the United States will celebrate the 250 years of the founding of the United States of America. But over the thousands of years, we've met with all kinds of disasters, calamities, rivals, enemies, you name it. I will not go into details. We met with the Huns, Attila the Hun, went west, etc., after being defeated by the Chinese. We met with the Turks, for example. They left and went west, for example. I do not want to go into details. We dealt with the Mongols, we dealt with the Manchus, you name it. But one thing is very unique for the Chinese nation. The Chinese civilization has never been destroyed, has never been interrupted. That means when we look at the United States, we have a historical perspective. I can stretch time, boom, into 5,000 years. And then I can stretch time into the future for another 5,000 years. And I'm pretty sure by the end of the coming 5,000 years, the Chinese civilization will still stand on the global stage. Whether the United States will be there 5,000 years later, I hope they will. But, you really need to do a lot of history to see how deeper your roots are, to be able to project, the length of your survivability. That's number one. Number two is that in China, we have a saying, don't do unto others what you do not want others do unto you. Now, let me be very quick. In the heat of the aerial battle, immediately after the India lost, Prime Minister Modi threatened to deny water to Pakistan. And I said publicly on Indian television, I said to deny water to the people in the downstream in times of peace will be a crime against humanity. In times of war, it will be a war crime. So I urged the Indian government not to do that. And I said, don't do unto others what you don't want others to do unto you. The host, wonderful lady, said, are you threatening India? And I said, no, this is not a threat. This is 2,500-year-old philosophical truth that we keep practicing in China. Don't do unto others what you don't want others to do unto us. The same way, I will tell the Americans and President Trump and his team, don't do unto China what you don't want China to do unto you. If you want to chokehold China in terms of the semiconductor, China will choke you in terms of the rare earth. And Trump and Pakistan are talking about rare earth. But Trump himself doesn't know, but Secretary of State Rubio knows. Having rare earth is just one step in the right direction. Whether you will be able to extract them, to process them, to refine it to what we say 6 nines, meaning 9.99999 degree. That is the trick. And only China has that. So China has never had any problem exporting rare earth to the United States before. But if you want to chokehold China, China will choke you back. And that really makes the United States, in terms of defense industry, very much losing its sanity because it's being choked. I mention this again. If calm descends between China and the United States, why should the United States try to chokehold China in terms of the semiconductor? Let me tell you, in a matter of, this is my judgment, 3 to 5 years, China will no longer need to import any single dollar of chips made abroad, including from China's Taiwan province. That means China will achieve complete self-reliance in semiconductor chips. And once China achieves that, there will be a revolution in terms of chips pricing. Price will drop like a rocket, like many other things that China will achieve self-independence. That means, again, China will never fire the first shot at anyone, but China will never allow you to fire the second shot at China. That is the resilience of China, that is the wisdom of China, and also the historical depth, and by which you can really project what will be the future. So I keep thinking about the world in terms of the coming 5,000 years. I keep thinking about the United States in 7025. Where is the United States by 7025? I hope Mr. Rundy and his people will think about that. I keep thinking about China in 7025. Let me tell you my real truth. I believe China will be standing there by 7025. And I hope China-Pakistani friendship will also survive to 7025 and beyond. Thank you.
When Dr. Gao was referring to falling prices, for a second I thought you were going to say falling like the Indian Rafales, but you didn't say that. So I can't take the liberty and say that. Yes. Yes. We have the last 10 minutes, so we'll have to go very quickly.
Okay, my name is Zanera. I'm a journalist and a policy analyst. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
So my question is to Mr. Randi, who said that this is the moment for Pakistan to go big on minerals, one, and two, engage on TAPI. It's interesting the way you put it, because it seems like a very US-centric approach towards Pakistan. It's different that Pakistan would always welcome it, given our economic problems. But how is this different from every time when US comes back to Pakistan with its own interest and putting it in front of us as if it is in our interests? That is number one. Number two, I'm a student of federalism, and I have read all the 85 essays, Federalist papers I'm talking about. And the American dream that we saw while we were growing up and heard of, it is painful to see what is happening on your campuses, to your citizens, to students who don't agree to you. So isn't it better for US to focus on the domestic front a little? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I guess what I would say about, we've historically had a very over-securitized, the only people in Washington that know anything about Pakistan are spies and generals. We have an overly militarized relationship. I'm a Republican. I like spies and I like generals, okay? But we have too much of that. So I think the question for the United States and Pakistan is, do we want to diversify and broaden the aperture of our partnership? We have a relationship. It's, I think we have, we owe a lot to Pakistan for opening the relationship with China. We have a history. There's some distrust, and there's been some, we've had a number of conflicts. As I said, I think we're at the high point of our relationship in the last 15 years, and it's the first time in 60 years we're looking at Pakistan as Pakistan. So my thought is, what can we do in the economic sphere? I think President Trump and his team are right to be focused on this. Like I said, I'll take a little bit of credit, because it was like when I came here a year ago and I started talking about minerals, people looked at me like, what are you talking about, to be frank. And so I think if we want to broaden the aperture of the relationship, in my view, these are two obvious areas. There's others, it's LNG, some of it's technology, but I think, as I said earlier, We need to think about how Pakistan handles its energy and its electricity issues if we're going to actually make the promise of AI a thing. And then I guess on the campuses, my view is we have 1 million foreign students. That's a good thing. At the same time, it's a privilege. You're a guest in the United States. So if you say things, or people act in a certain... One thing is speech. Sometimes there's a really obnoxious speech. But sometimes it's people not following the rules. So it's a privilege. It's not a right to come and study in the US. People can study in the UK. People can study in China. People can study elsewhere. So if we don't have a million students and we end up having 700,000 students, I'm okay with that. If we don't have 1 million students, we have 300,000 foreign students, I'm okay with that too. So it's a privilege to come to the United States. Many of you have studied there. I think it's one part of our soft power, but it's not a right. And so it means you have to abide by certain rules. And so I'm assuming part of what you're referring to is some of the stuff around October 7th. If you participate in demonstrations and the university says you need to break up the protest and you won't do it, my view is we should have consequences for that. There's consequences. There's rules here in Pakistan. People follow rules. We have rules in the United States. We're a free country, but at the same time, we've got rules. If you're a guest in the country, you should respect being a guest in the country.
G at the back. G.
Thank you. Because we are running out of time, I will go asking if Pakistan becomes part of the US broader initiative to reduce China's control over critical minerals. How is China likely to reposition itself in response to such a development? And my question directly goes to Dr. Gao. Thank you.
I thought the question was about the minerals and China's role in that. First of all, I think the United States is talking with multiple countries in the world about rare earth, Myanmar included. Can you believe it? Pakistan included, Ukraine, and China's northern neighbor, Mongolia, many others. It's not a problem. I think the fact of the matter is that sometimes whenever you have the rare earth minerals, you actually send it to China to be processed and to be refined. Rare earth in itself is not rare by any stretch of the imagination. The problem is that rare earth coexists with other minerals. So you need to extract the rare earth part of the mineral from the other minerals, and then you need to process huge amount of other minerals in order to really extract a very tiny amount of rare earth. Then the difficulty really kicks in. You need to refine it into the highest level of fineness before it can really be used on advanced semiconductors, etc. Now, the trick is that if you use rare earth materials to build phantom planes, etc., and it is not of the highest quality, your planes, your missiles can be detected by the other side. And don't quote me when I say this, because I'm not an expert on this, but the noise I picked up is that when the B-2 bombers took off in the United States, flying west across the Pacific, and eventually dropped the bomb on Iran, the takeoff, the flight, and whatever it did in the air was picked up by very sophisticated radar. Even the cockpit dialogue between the pilots was picked up. Can you believe it? Now, this means some country, I do not want to name the name, you know what I'm talking about, has the very sophisticated technology. And if you really want to choke China in terms of the semiconductor chips, China will be self-reliant eventually, 3 to 5 years. But then it will take minimum 10 years before the United States can really come up with a real practical roadmap to manufacture and process and refine rare earth to the finest quality. And in a matter of today, 5 years will make or break anything in this world. So that leaves me again back to my conclusion, inevitability of peace. I want to be in eternal peace with people like Mr. Randi. Everyone in the United States, with all my classmates at Yale Law School, including my alumni, Vice President J.D. Vance, and I do hope he will win the presidential election in 2028 and be the next president in 2029. Therefore, between China and the United States, forget about all these rivalry, etc. China is not a rising power, allow me to mention. China has been in the top echelon for thousands of years. And China will never allow any country after the Opium War to rule above China and to bully China. So from the US perspective, don't call China as a rising power. We have risen again, and again. And look at the comparison between China today and Britain today. I told the British friends, China is not a competitor for Britain. Where do China compete with Britain, except for men's football team? Other than that, where is the competition? No, there is no competition. Britain will be ill-advised to think China as a competitor or a rival or an enemy. No way. China is not competing with Britain. China is thinking about landing the persons on the moon ahead of anyone else. And China is really very broadly minded. And China wants to embrace everyone in the world as an equal rather than to dominate above you. That is the China, and that is the resilience of China. When you think about China marching over 5,000 years to today. And I can tell you, I am a typical descendant of the Chinese civilization. And I want to keep marching forward into the future for another 5,000 years. By then, where is Great Britain? I do not know. You know, the British Prime Minister was an Indian-born, distinguished Prime Minister. And the mayor of New York is a Muslim American born somewhere in Africa, all right? So I would say, when we look at today, don't be seized up with today. Always think about the historical depth. And when we look at today, never only think about today, forecast into the future. And in the Chinese term, we look back minimum 5,000 years, and we look forward in another 5,000 years. I will dare to say there are no other nations in the world which can bring onto the table that historical perspective in terms of time and that historical projection into the future. Therefore, deal with China as an equal. That's the minimum thing you can do. Don't rule above China. Don't try to bully China. Don't try to push China around. And China will never do this to you. China just wants to be your equal. That's the minimum bottom line. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have more questions. I know there is one gentleman I've given the mic to, but we are out of time. I'll have to apologize to you because it is 2:30 and the next session has to come along. So you can ask the question privately once we finish. So I'd like to thank all the speakers today. And I think one thing that I would like to mention is that, you know, the quality of the panel today was that you got 4 different versions of important issues that are of so much importance to us. And in Pakistan, unfortunately, we are not used to hearing such a variety of views. So it's a wonderful opportunity. General Majid, credit to you and your team for having a panel which can actually allow us to think beyond our own prejudices and biases. We all learn from it, and ultimately it will benefit discourse in Pakistan. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you very much, worthy speakers and the moderator. This concludes a very interesting discussion.
大家好，欢迎来到烽火的频道。本期视频分享的是2025年的11月11日，高志凯参加的马加拉对话的视频。高志凯的演讲非常的精彩，可以说是全程爽翻，观众呢也是掌声雷动。高志凯拿出华为的卫星通话手机，可以说是有点太凡尔赛了，给一众人说的是一愣一愣的。烽火针对对话当中的几个点说一下自己的观点。第一点是一位女士，她说为什么中国在阻止种族灭绝方面并未充分的展现自己的立场。我认为这就有点说不过去了。中国天天在联合国谴责个别国家的行为，推进加沙的两国方案。联合国框架内一直对加沙问题进行人道主义的救援和干预 甚至把中国自己的大运都开到埃及去了。可是作为世界警察的美国在做什么呢？滥用自己的一票否决权，阻止推动加沙的问题解决，阻止两国方案的实施。烽火很奇怪为什么中国的努力人们总是看不见？反观美国，没有西方国家去责怪，倒是怪起中国来了。而且这样的言论在国际上还真的是不少。西方世界的人权自由现在又在哪里呢？这件事到底是谁不负责任？不是个别媒体想抹黑就能定性的，世界人民心中定能分辨出牛鬼蛇神。第二点是高志凯关于东风61战略导弹的那段描述，很多人去纠结具体的数字，比如说40马赫，因为这是绝密的数据，高志凯是不可能知晓的。总之这款战略弹道导弹很厉害就是了，有了这东西就没人敢和中国掀桌子砸大锅。第三点是关于 AI 竞争，高志凯梭哈全部身家要赌中国的 AI 赢。他认为中国的 AI 是开源的，美国的 AI 呢是闭源的，最终中国一定会赢得这场 AI 竞争。烽火完全赞同这样的说法。开源 AI 呢是指将 AI 系统的核心组成部分，如模型的源代码、预训练权重、训练数据、推理框架等公开，允许任何人免费的获取、查看、修改、二次开发和商业使用。核心的逻辑呢就是开放协作，通过全球开发者社区的贡献，快速的迭代优化模型的数据，降低 AI 技术的使用门槛。闭源 AI 呢则完全相反，用户只能通过 API 接口、成品软件等方式使用其功能，无法接触或修改底层的技术。烽火也在网上查了一下，列举了开源 AI 的代表 DeepSeek、阿里的通义千问等。闭源 AI 的代表呢有 OpenAI 的 ChatGPT、谷歌的 Gemini、百度的文心一言等。烽火认为开源的 AI 呢更能够快速的迭代，可以集中全球全部的工程师智慧去改进。这一点我认为和安卓 iOS 有点像，具体仁者见仁，智者见智。以上也仅代表烽火个人的观点。好了，本期视频就分享到这里，我们下期再见。